Hi, guys. Welcome to Faith, Purpose, and Freedom, where we share real stories, real hope, and real inspiration. My name is Kayla Rose, and I have Angelie Kapoor with us today. Angelie, do you want to kind of share just a little bit about what you do and what got you there?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Kayla, so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
So, as Kayla mentioned, my name is Angelie Kapoor, and I actually come from a background in healthcare. I was in healthcare for over 20 years. Half that time, I was in leadership and management roles. And today, I am actually a professional speaker. I also am a self published author. And then I also do some corporate training and coaching in regards to helping leaders develop their management and leadership skills, and just really, hoping that together we can make the workplaces so much more happier to be in and have them be more productive and really caring for the customers and the patients, the way that we want to. So that's,
Right.
in a nutshell, who I am.
Yes, I love it. So tell us just a little more about your books. Like, what are we writing? Are we allowed to tell yet?
Yeah, so actually I started writing a few years ago and I am a huge advocate for mindset. So, in my first healthcare management position that got promoted in, it really threw me for a curveball. I was not properly prepared to be in that position and I really found myself struggling internally with the different things like negative self-talk, feeling like a failure, constantly being overwhelmed, imposter syndrome, and, I went to different mentors trying to find, get help and support in what I was dealing with. And, they told
Right.
me to read a whole bunch of books, attend a whole bunch of conferences, but that seemed to just like inundate me with too much information. And it really just kind of made things worse. So I kind of
Right.
just tried to write it out for a few months. But I mean, all of that internal stuff just like built, and built inside of me,
Yeah.
and it had just exploded one day during a team meeting that I was having, and I mean, it was so unexpected for me and for my team that was in the meeting. I mean, I felt like I was having an out of body experience, but, basically, that was really the pivotal moment for me to recognize that, okay, if I didn't start dealing with these internal things that were happening, I mean, it was turning me into a person that I didn't like and I didn't even
Yeah.
recognize, and so that's when I really kind of hunkered down and was like, "Okay, what's going on? How did I get here, and where do I go from here?" And that was kind
Right.
of one of the first things that God kind of showed me is that, there are things going on in your mind that you need to deal with. And so that's how I got introduced to mindset. Before that, I just I heard the word, but I didn't really know what it meant. And
Yeah.
it was really shocking to me because I was like, "Oh my gosh, my mind is like working against me." And I really, find that it's kind of I consider it the enemy's greatest weapon that he uses against us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
I agree.
yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, that's, so I wrote 2 books on mindset. One was, the first one was kind of a general introduction on it, kind of, sharing with people what I found out because I'm sure if I'm not the only one that didn't really know what mindset was. And then the second one was, actually a methodology that I created called leader mindset activation. And it was specifically for workplace managers. And so that
Okay.
was what that book was about. And that book actually ended up receiving an International Impact Book Award in 2020.
Hi.
Yeah, yeah. So
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm excited about that. And then now currently, I have more of my book focus on, actually writing like devotionals. I'm actually finishing up a book on leadership that is based on biblical theory. And so I'm really excited
Mm.
for that to come out. Yeah. So the book looks at, leaders in the Bible like Saul and David and Solomon, and
Oh,
so I'm really excited for that to be coming out. And yeah, just whatever the Lord lays on my heart to write about, is
yeah.
typically where the books come from.
I love that you're doing that, and I love that you said that because I often look at King David is my favorite story in the Bible, like, hands down, favorite story. It's just something I even try to explain to my children.
Mhm.
He was just a little boy, just a little shepherd boy, and nobody thought he could take out a giant, and he had the faith to do it. So, no, there's nothing that our faith can't take us to, but ultimately, if we don't keep our actions and behaviors aligned with God, then we could fall off course.
Right.
But God's anointing never leaves us. It never left David. I mean, never left him, and he still ended up one of the greatest kings that ever lived. And
Mhm.
so I don't know, I love that, and I think if we just make God the CEO of not only our life, but our businesses, there's nothing we can't do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
That's definitely so I love that. I think that that's going to be a book that is going to excel, and it's just, entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, supervisors, it needs to be in the hands of every business owner,
Mhm. Mhm.
every leader. That's gonna be
Absolutely.
beautiful. So when you go into, businesses, how do you help the leaders? Do you kind of equip them?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. So, kind of what I found in doing the work that I do is that there's kind of primarily two different leaders. So, there's the leader that's kind of very egotistical, is, very proud of the position that they're in and doesn't necessarily understand that maybe they aren't doing such a great job.
Okay.
If you were to ask that leader, how if I asked your staff about you, what would they say? Oh, they would say that I'm great. But then you go and ask their staff and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you know, could we could we have somebody better, please?" And then there's those ones that really were kind of like how I was when I first started in my management position is they really feel lost. They really don't feel like they can gain their footing. They don't really know what to do. They feel like they're failing, but when you go ask their staff members, they think they're doing a great job. So it's kind of weird that they're kind of like these two different
Yeah.
extremes of people. And so typically when I go into a company, obviously, the managers who feel like they need help are the first ones to jump up and ask for it. The leaders that don't necessarily understand that they might need help or a little bit harder to get around to
Oh,
understanding that. But yeah, it's really about the basis of my whole leadership development is actually something we talked about before we started the podcast. Is that leadership is not a whole bunch of external skills that you
right.
kind of find that you need to learn and start implementing and things like that. It's really about leading from who you are.
Yeah.
So, understanding your identity, understanding your strengths, as well as some areas that you might fall short in. And from my own personal experience with this, and then also with coaching other people, I found that when a person really discovers and becomes more familiar with who they truly are, then their confidence builds. And all of a sudden, the list of external things that they thought that they needed to go out and pay money for and learn, they all of a sudden realize that they actually already know how to do that. It was just
Right.
kind of finding, that hidden person within themselves that had gotten buried by people telling them who they should be and who they are and trying to
Yeah.
mold them into this person that when they start uncovering and recognizing, "Oh, here I am," then all of a sudden, they're a stronger person for it, and because of that, they're a stronger leader, and so that's really what my approach is that, you can, teach somebody a whole bunch of external skills, and they can be an expert at it, but if
Yeah.
they aren't really functioning from the inside out, then that's not gonna be sustainable leadership.
Right. Well, and that's so true because oftentimes I have seen leaders who they started out amazing
Mhm.
and then they just kind of got torn down over the years. And that's where in the workplace, I feel like productivity lessons. And I feel like this is where a lot of companies just start going on that downhill slope because leadership starts struggling and there's almost like this battle between
Yeah.
leadership and employees. Employees are feeling undervalued. They're not feeling like what they're doing is respected. And so it kind of just turns into that battle where when we're all on the same page, and I feel like if employees know that their leaders respect them and value their work,
Mhm.
you're gonna get more productivity. You're gonna get employees that are, like, running to work because we got things going on at home, and some of them wanna be able to come to work and not be like, "Oh, I gotta go to work." I wanna see people being like, "Yes, I get to go to work tomorrow. I get to be with my other family," and I th yeah, I think that's what you're building there, so that's beautiful just to know that there's someone out there doing that for our employers.
Thank
Um,
you, yeah.
so when we just talk about identity, I definitely want to delve into that. I often say, like, we have an identity crisis in the world, and
Mhm.
that hurts people's feelings. I understand because I was the girl that was sitting in a counselor's office, and this counselor looked at me and had the audacity to say, "Kayla, you have an identity crisis." And I'm like, "Oh my God, who do you think you are?" So, I after it really resonated with me, I was like, wow, this is so true. And I spent my whole life I already had my identity, but I dimmed my light to
Mhm.
benefit other people.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've really found from my own experience and when we're with working with other people is that yeah, I mean, you will constantly find me saying that the whole kind of issue with the different challenges and obstacles that we find ourselves facing is that, like you said, we're in these constant identity crises.
Oh,
Um, just, and I can understand how, at the time you were really offended and how some people would get
oh, I
offended
was.
to hear that, but I mean, they have to kind of, um, sit back and think about it for a second. Is who they are identifying as coming from them, or is it coming from the world? You know, is it
Right.
coming from because people told them that this is who they are and how they should be? I mean, especially for women, we're constantly being told, you're supposed to look like this. Your hair should look like this. Your makeup should look like this. You need to wear these kind of clothes and you need to come off this certain way. And we are just so inundated with all this content that is
Right.
really manipulating, how we kind of think about ourselves. I'm very big on spiritual warfare. I mean, I can pretty much link anything to the enemy using it against you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, if the enemy can distract you, keep you busy, and then keep you confused, he's doing his job well. And unfortunately, he's doing it really well because that's the majority of people in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's seriously true, and you know, oh, I feel like we are constantly under a spiritual warfare.
Mhm.
There is a spiritual warfare going on. I have noticed that there are more youth turning to Jesus than ever before.
Yes.
There really truly are. So the enemy is mad. He's angry and he's upset and he is worked up over it. And he's like, no. And at the end of the day, this world really does. Well, the enemy believes it belongs to him, but it doesn't. However, he is controlling a lot. And we have to decide, are we going to allow it? Or are we going to stomp Satan beneath our feet? That is literally I teach my kids all the time. I'm like, listen, you can partner with one of two people. Whenever you're sitting there and something's on your shoulder going, that doesn't seem right, or
Mhm.
oh, that's a good idea. That seems right. You need to think, is it aligning with God's will for the world and with God's good plan? Is it leading life into the world or is it not? Because if 1 ounce of you feels like it's not, you need to walk the other way
Right.
because you're partnering with Satan at that point. And
Mhm.
that's how God works. God works through people. Satan works through people. We have to
Mhm.
decide who we're going to partner with. And
Exactly.
it's,
Exactly. And,
and it's hard.
and it is, and I mean, a conversation that I always have with people is, Satan is not going to work in obvious ways. And you are not going to recognize Satan if, he were to walk into a room. I mean, he's not going to make things obvious. It's actually he actually operates very subtly. And so a lot of people, even, Christians, that's why especially from me, I'm speaking from experience, is that I've had to have God kind of stop me and nudge me and say, "Hey, you need
Yeah.
to look at this thing in your life a little bit closer." And, it seems so innocent enough, because that's what the world tells you it is, or because it's
Yeah.
acceptable in the world. But, again, that's why you really need to, that's why he says, don't conform to this world, renew your mind, and have discernment and recognize and walk in truth. And, it's not easy, but at the same time, it's not hard either, I don't think.
Right. And, honestly, I'm going to go back to your book for a moment. This is where I think a lot of people, having a devotional, some of the best things I've ever done for myself is be able to go to stories of the Bible, people of the Bible. And sometimes I may not know the story. That's the greatest part. And I will look up, like, give me a story of the Bible that might go with, whatever I'm going through.
Mhm.
But it's really cool how I'll get the scriptures and I'll get that story and I'm like reading it and then I go to the scripture and it's just like God just talks to me. And it's beautiful because we kind of know how to align ourselves better with what God's will is. And the answers aren't always gonna be plain black and white. They're not. Like, God is mysterious, and honestly, God has a really good sense of humor. I don't care what anyone says. He really does. You know, I I spent months and months just praying, and, I spent 3 years of my life in a situation where we were living, like, paycheck to paycheck and struggling, so I'd spent like 3 years of my life just praying, taking every free course, every Zoom course, getting all of the Google Coursera certifications I could. I joined Christian Leadership Institute. That's where I got my minister's certificate, and youth ministry was huge on my heart at that time.
Mhm.
I just started doing the little things, and I just kept praying and praying, and I knew, because everybody else told me God will tell you when it's time, and I'm like, "What do you mean? How will I know?" I fall down the steps at work, and God's like, "Everything that you've been learning and doing, it's time." And honestly, in 2 months, I I mean, in 2 months' time, I have helped 15 different people. That
Oh,
is a
wow.
blessing.
Yes.
That is a blessing.
Mhm.
And so, God really does tell us when it's time. And you just have to trust the path. Because I spent 3 years just really focusing and praying, and it wasn't like there was a black and white plan. "Here you go, Kayla, this is what you're gonna do, and on this date." I had no
Mhm.
idea. So, and obviously I've done some things over those past few years and published books, but you just never it's not I don't know, it just happens. It's like a door opens and you trust the path and you go through it, and all of a sudden you're just like, "What is happening?" And
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
it's not about, I think for me, it came to a point where you have to make God the CEO of your life, and I will live on that for the rest of my life because none of it's about me. And
Exactly.
that's where I had it wrong. It was about me before. Now it's about everyone else and leading the world to Jesus, leading them in the right path.
Mhm.
I think that's where we have to almost get in life. And we do.
Mhm. Mhm.
So anyway, next question for you, just out of curiosity. So whenever you are, helping people, I know you don't really coach as much anymore. You do more speaking, but when you were coaching people, how do you help them through identity? So like for me, the first thing I do with anyone is I'm spiritual gifts and personality tests.
Mhm.
I feel like they are so important because we all have gifts, and I think you almost need to know that. And then you have to understand your personality to understand who you are, why you do what you do, why you react the way you react. So I'm just curious, like, how do you?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. And so, what I found is if I would ask them, well, tell me what your core values are, I've never been able to have anybody be able to do that. So, that
That
would me was a big indicator to both me and them that
Yeah,
they were not rooted very strongly in who they were. Typically, people would start to rattle off like their company core values. They just, that was just a big indicator is that if you asked somebody, "Well, do you know your core values? Tell me what they are." A lot of people were like, they had to think really hard about it. They'd start rattling off some things, but obviously, if you don't really, know that instinctively, then you're not living by those core values. So, yeah, that was
right.
kind of my thing of how to just start that conversation and help people recognize that.
If someone would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have literally been stumbled. I'd have been like, "What's that even mean?"
Yeah, exactly.
So that's great. I often say I remember, I don't know, it was probably about 10 years ago. I was sitting with a young man and he said to me, "Kayla, what's the point of life? Like, we live, we struggle, we die." And I'm like, "Well, fair." And what I would give to have that same conversation again. And I
100.
don't know why. There's just certain conversations in my life that still stick. And I think, oh boy, if I'd have had that conversation today, I would have said, yeah, we go through struggles, but the whole purpose of life is to learn to love Jesus, walk with Jesus, and lead everybody else to Jesus too.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's the purpose,
absolutely.
and live in love. I mean, you can be angry and you can be frustrated and you can be mad, but who are you hurting? Nobody else
Yep.
but yourself.
Absolutely.
And so, we have to learn to just love people because, you know, I've found myself in a situation where I'm more blessed and honored for every struggle I ever went through now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to get there, but I am confident every single person in the world is gonna get there one day. We're all getting
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I use the book of Job, to
I
really
love
look at
Joe.
yeah, really to look at that into perspective. I think we've all been in situations, especially as believers, where I've been in churches where they would tell you if you're going through a struggle, then it's because you sinned and that's your consequence. But if we look at Job, that's not true. And I have found in
He
my
was
own life.
perfect and he lost
Exactly,
everything.
yeah. I have found in my own experience and then also, with observing other people is that yeah, there are some things, some struggles you will go through as a consequence, but I think that God uses that very rarely. I think most of the time when we are going through a struggle, it's because He is actually growing and transforming us and
Yeah,
for the next level where He needs us to go next. And so,
right.
for me, what I've really learned is instead of asking the question, why, get me out of this ASAP. I look at it as from a different perspective of, okay, I'm going through this. So God, what is it that you need me to learn from this?
How am I
What
supposed
is
to
it
learn? How do I grow?
exactly? What do you need me to let go of?
Yeah,
Because typically it's really him trying to get you to understand surrender. It's not about performance, it's about surrender. And so yeah, that's just something that I've learned and something that I share with people is, if you're going through a struggle, don't look at it so much as a bad thing, but kind of flip that perspective around and say, hey, if I'm going through a struggle, God is preparing me for something huge. So I better sit
right.
back and just, learn what I can from it and enjoy it as much as I can.
Well, and it's so true because I could tell people a billion stories of struggles I've walked through. And we all walk through our own personal walk of struggles too.
Mhm.
Mine aren't going to be the same as yours. And one of the biggest things I hear people do is they compare, well, I just don't know why I'm stuck here, but I know Billy over there had it much worse than me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. A
Exactly.
struggle is a struggle and it hurts and it's hard, but there's a way we can learn and grow from each and every struggle we go through, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we have to be willing though. And that's, one of the biggest things I've learned to teach is we have to be willing
Mhm.
to take that struggle, pray, give it to God, and figure out exactly what we're learning in that moment.
Right. Absolutely.
And I mean, oftentimes I've learned that I was being stubborn, not not God.
I know. I know. Yeah, no, it's yeah, like I said, he's gotta tear you down to build you back up, so
Right, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, though. I
mm-mm.
feel like sometimes we are better off whenever we have to restart
Yes.
because you learn to be grateful. I mean, gratitude is something I'm huge with. I actually make my kids write down 3 things they're grateful for every day.
Mhm.
Because if we start out each day being grateful, now we're able to not take the hardships we might fall upon during that day so
Right.
hard. We're going to take them a little easier because we're gonna be like, "Hey, it's fine." So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the enemy is definitely prowling and spiritual warfare is very real. My family, when I got baptized, it was October of 2022. I got baptized, and, just being vulnerably honest, March of 2022, I tried to take my life.
Mm.
Um, I had been through it through my life, and I lost a daughter, and, I was just done. I was ready to give up,
Mhm.
and so I got baptized in October of 2022. Um The night I almost took my life, I called a church at 1 o'clock in the morning, and a man answered the phone
Mhm.
at 1 AM. And he said to me the last thing he said to me is, "Kayla, I think if you really wanted to take your life, you wouldn't be calling me today." And I was like,
Mm.
"Huh." So, I downloaded the Holy Bible app on my phone. I still use it today. It's still on my phone. Um, so anyhow, fast forward, the same exact day a year later, my son's best friend died.
Oh, wow.
The same day I was going to take my life, a year later, my son's best friend passed away.
Mm.
And I can remember sitting there going, maybe if I'd have just taken my life, he would still be here today. That was Satan,
Mhm.
literally Satan in my mind telling me that because that was so far from true. In that moment, I was devastated. I was watching kids break. And then my daughter was almost abducted on her way home from school. And then she had 19 death threats in school.
Oh, wow.
It was awful, awful. We had went through pure hell. My oldest son fell into addiction
Mm.
along with his friends, and I mean, spiritual warfare was very real. People will say, like, "You make choices." Yes, we make choices, but I promise you I didn't even know which way to turn. And this was all after I got baptized. And then like my daughters got baptized and then I slowly started just seeing God take everything. And I started storming my house like get the hell out of here. Literally I was hollering and I was just like you do not belong here. You and so my 11-year-old started telling me things, and she's like, "There's a man, he keeps coming to my room and waking me up at night,
Oh.
and he needs you to know that he knows you." And I'm like, "Sophia, you can't tell people that, they'll think you're crazy." And so I had talked to my pastors, and they were like, "No, really, you probably need to listen to her." Turns out that I live on, an old, like, Indians found Killbuck, Ohio,
Mm.
and, this man is actually buried where my family is buried, right by them, and he is an ancestor of mine, and his
Oh.
name is Gelaleland Kilbuck, and he founded the area, and his fort sat right around where my house does.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. If that doesn't give you cold chills, I don't know what will.
I
Because
know.
I was like, "What is happening?" And so, we ended up going to the grave, and we were looking, and, his daughter's grave is right by him, and guess what her name is? Sophia. My
Oh,
11-year-old daughter's name is Sophia.
yeah.
Sophia means wisdom. So,
Wow.
bottom line, I wholeheartedly believe in spiritual warfare, but I promise you, you can knock it out of the ballpark very easily. And if you don't know, I'll be honest, there were times I didn't know what to do. I used AI, I'm not gonna lie. I used AI and I'm like, "Give me prayers to say." And I'd walk around this house hollering and, well, today my oldest son is sober and he is about to be a dad, and he is naming his son after his best friend that passed away.
Oh, really?
And so, I am running a coaching business. I'm an author. My daughter's an author. It all happens. We just have to be willing to know that we have an identity crisis and we have to be willing to recognize our own identity and know that we all have a God given purpose. We all have a God given identity. We just have to reconnect with it.
Absolutely.
I often wonder, is that why children, when you look at little kids, they're like the happiest things. Like they just
Mhm.
run around enjoying life. Doesn't matter what you say to them. You are not taking them down unless you tell them they can't have an ice cream cone.
Right. Right.
And I often think they have not been able to be distorted
Right.
by the world yet. And I believe that that's what leads us to where we have those struggles in the world. And I think that's where it starts really is, our kids start going to school, they start going out in the world, they start, you know, getting involved and seeing the situations that are happening, and then they start letting people tear them down.
Absolutely.
And so I am going to just ask, what would you say to our youth as they're growing up in this craziness? How could they, you know, become leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it really just boils down to knowing who you are, having a strong sense of identity, especially like you're just saying with kids and especially youth. I mean, that is a very vulnerable period of, your life is you're trying to figure out who you are and you're being told by so many different people and companies and TV shows and movies and music who you should be.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I really believe that us focusing on our children and our youth so that they have that opportunity to really learn who they are, discover who God created them to be
Right.
instead of being so vulnerable and other people and other things trying to tell them who they are and who they should be and what they should do. So yeah, that to answer your question, if I were talking to a youth, and actually a lot of the high school and college speeches that I give, that's the exact topic is, learning who you are and standing strong in that. Again, it just all boils down to identity and having core values and knowing what those are.
So you do go into the high schools and colleges also? I love that.
I do,
I love
yeah.
that. And I think it's just so important because even truly, I look at people my age and I've talked to a lot of people, and it's like our parents didn't mess up. They just they only knew how to do what they knew how to do,
Mm,
and we only know what we know.
exactly.
And, it's funny because I've watched myself heal my mother. It's a blessing, though.
Mhm.
And, so I think there's a vast majority of adults. We just didn't know our identity. We struggled, and we all have our own struggles, and we never got to be the ones that witness people helping people often. It
Right.
just isn't something that happened as I was growing up. And, I mean, it happened. You've seen people help people here and there, but not like I feel like the world has come to a better point, though.
Mhm.
You do see people helping people that are struggling with addiction, people that are struggling in, mental health or companies, and I think that it's a blessing. So I believe that our youth have just such an anointing over their lives,
Mhm.
and they're going to move mountains. They're going to change the trajectory of this world. They really are.
Right,
They just,
absolutely.
so whenever you're in there talking and just speaking life into them, it's a blessing because everything you say, even if you think they're not listening, they're listening. And
Mhm.
then they may go home and say it to their parents, or they might say it to their siblings, or, so it's a blessing just knowing that they're going to get to help people with those words too. So
Absolutely.
what's your goal with your, book and with your devotional especially?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have a goal for it. I just, I'm really following God's will. If He tells
Yeah.
me to pull out a pen or start typing on the keyboard, I'm gonna do it. And so I'm really, I pray this prayer every day that God will use me as a conduit for growing the body of Christ and furthering the kingdom, however He sees fit every single day. And so that's really what I do is just really, lean in and trust God and, trust His will, that anything that He's showing me, teachings, messages, insight,
Right.
and, the talents and skills that He blesses me with, that He uses that to, for me to turn around and help other people, even if it's in a small way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really my goal with the
Even
book.
if it's one person, that you're helping,
Absolutely,
it's a blessing because you get to help someone, and
absolutely.
I think that's where we all have to be. We just have to know, like, it doesn't matter as long as we are helping people and we are all living that life leading people. I've recently learned that, when I start getting those positive, inspirational thoughts in my head, I just need to start writing them.
Mhm,
So I have my calendar, and I it's huge. So I just write in it, and I just, and then I later go, because oftentimes I would find myself, I'd get those and I wouldn't do anything with it. I'd just let it go.
right.
And then one day I just heard, "You're wasting it." And I'm like, "Oh, oh, I'm wasting it." So, yeah, I think it's so important when God says, get that pen out and start writing.
Absolutely,
I love
absolutely.
that. I absolutely love it. Hey, what if you were giving some inspiration or just a word of encouragement to all the listeners, what would you say today?
I'd say lean in. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, I know that it's harder than it sounds. But yeah, I mean, if you just lean in, you just let go and you just trust. It's such an incredible ride. I mean, it's so against our kind of our fleshly type of way of doing things. Like we want to be in control all the time. And I know I struggled
Yeah.
with this. Like I don't want to give up control. What's gonna happen? But seriously, the moment that you do, it's not that you lose control, it actually feels like you gain more of it by,
Yeah,
releasing control, letting go, and just letting God take it. Um, and it's so much easier to function from a place where you're not worrying about, everything. Just, God, it's in your hands. This is your battle, not mine. So yeah, I mean that would be my one piece of advice to people is just lean in, just let go and just trust. He has a plan for you. He created you to be a unique individual and for a unique purpose. Your purpose that he created you for, nobody else in this world has. So just trust that he has a plan and he's working his plan on you.
absolutely. I agree. And that's the thing is we are all going to go down our own path, but we just have to be willing to let go and let God.
Exactly.
I I actually have that written a couple places in my house, let go and let God. And, we just have to be willing to give it to him and sit with him. If you're struggling, sit with God.
Mhm.
Reach out to someone and know there are people there that love you and God loves you. He wants to move you into your purpose. And we
Absolutely.
all have a purpose. Every single one of us.
Mhm.
We have we have a purpose. I know I actually was talking to a lady the other day who was just like, "I just don't think I have a purpose." And I was like, "Oh, so you were just born for no reason?" I don't feel like God does that. Like God does that.
Right? Yeah, no.
And by the end of our call, it was so amazing just to see how she was able to completely transform her life. And she was just like, "Oh, wow, I do." And, I sent her the spiritual gifts tests website and I was like, "Here, take this."
Mhm.
And then we had talked back and forth, and it's just beautiful because I swear when people take that spiritual gifts test, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I do have talents and gifts. Oh, I do that." And it's amazing to just watch how they're like, "Oh, wow." And they start to gain that little bit of confidence that they need to
Absolutely.
go the mile. Hey,
Absolutely.
Angelie, we appreciate you being with us today. If somebody wanted to connect with you to have a speaking engagement or to get you to come into their company, what would they do to connect with you?
Yeah, actually, if you go to my website, which is, angeliekapoor.com, all that information is there. You can, send
Awesome.
me, an email, you can give me a call. So, yeah, but all the information is there, angeliekapoor.com.
All right. And I will also include that in the description and include all of her links so that you can connect with her. Angelie, thank you so much for being with me today, sharing your wisdom with us. I am so excited for your new book to come out. Please send it to us as soon as you have it out.
Absolutely.
And thank you for being a blessing and being the hands and feet of Jesus in this world.
Well, thank you. It was such an honor to be here,
Absolutely.
Kayla.